Hello and welcome everyone. In this video, I want to do a simple review of a new feature that became available in Dynamics 365 version 38. This feature is called period charges. There is not much information available on this feature at the moment, but I was able to play around with it to figure out the basics. What this feature is used for is to generate free text invoice for the customers if certain thresholds on the amounts or quantities are not met in a specific period of time. In order to facilitate that functionality, first we will need to create our rule. Navigate to Accounts Receivable, Charges Setup, Period Charge Rules. In here, I will create a rule for a specific customer called Forest. Specify date range in which the invoices will be considered. So let's say any invoice posted from November 1st of 2023 will be considered. In here, I can apply a filter either on a specific customer, customer group, or all customers. I can also apply filters based on the warehouse and site on invoice. Because I've called this rule Forest, I will find my customer right here. Forest Wholesales. Now we will create a new rule line. In here we have three types of rules that we can define. So we will go through each one of them one at a time. First, let's take a look at monetary threshold. When we select that one, we will need to populate the monetary threshold. Let's say it's 1,000, a currency, and then the miscellaneous charge code. So let's say install. And in here we need to define a revenue account that will be populated on the free text invoice. Also useful to populate a description on the free text invoice in the description field right here below. So the way to interpret that monetary threshold is follows. If a total amount charged against the miscellaneous charge install on invoices starting from November 1st is less than $1,000, then the system will generate a free text invoice to compensate for the difference. For this testing, we will be using the sales order that has been invoiced today, November 1st. If you look at the invoice journal, take a look at the totals for the first invoice. We see that we have charged $100 of that installation fee on that first invoice. But the monetary threshold is set to be $1,000. So there's a $900 difference that needs to be accounted for. We will now use that rule to execute a periodic job. I will navigate to AR module again, periodic tasks, and click on that calculate periodic charge job. In here, we can run it for all the customers or a specific customer. I will do it for a specific customer. And here, most important, you need to define a period. And the system usually suggests you to have a period within 31 days, right? So I'm going to pick a period from November 1st to November 30th. To say, do the calculations for that period, see if the threshold of 1,000 is met, and if it's not, then generate a free text invoice. Also, in here, I can define a number of free text invoices that will be generated. Right now, it will generate one free text invoice for each invoice date. We have only one invoice date, November 1st. Therefore, we expect to see only one free text invoice. But if you had multiple invoice dates within that period, for that customer, then you should expect to see one free text invoice for each of those dates. And so I'm going to click on OK. Now let's navigate to AR invoices, free text invoices. In here we see a new not posted free text invoice. We're going to open it. We see the description was copied from the rule, and we also see quantity of 1, and most importantly, unit price of 900. So 900 was the difference between 1,000, which was our monetary threshold, and 100 already invoiced against that miscellaneous charge on November 1st. All right, so that is a monetary threshold. Now let's go back to the rules and let's add a second type to our rule. Quantity threshold. When we select quantity threshold, we need to define which quantity needs to be met. Let's say I'm going to start with quantity of 3. In which unit that quantity is expressed each is. I also need to define a charge amount that will be charged if that quantity threshold is not met in the currency, and same as before, the revenue account on the free text invoice. Now, this rule should be looked at as such. If the total quantity invoiced in the period is 3 or above, then the rule will not be applicable. If the total quantity, however, is less than 3, then the $5 charge should be added to the free text invoice. Now, if we look at our sales order, we see that we have invoiced 3 in total. So we are basically meeting our threshold. So if we run this periodic job right now, the system should not generate any additional free text invoices. Let's take a look. I will go to my periodic, calculate periodic charge, take a look at free text invoices, and I should only see the one that we have seen before for the monetary threshold. Now if I come back to my rule and I change my threshold from 3 to 5, now we have a situation where the threshold is not met because we have invoiced only 3 during this period, yet our threshold is 5. So save this rule, run the job. And what happened next, because we have not deleted our unposted first free text invoice, now the system should generate a second free text invoice for us. Right here, it is for the quantity of 1 and the unit price is 5. That is because the quantity threshold of 5 has not been met. The $5 charge has been added. As you can see, it's not driven by the quantities that we fell short of. So it's not $5 per each, but it's a total $5 regardless of missing quantities. So if you can increase your threshold to, let's say, 100, still, even though the threshold 100 is not met because we have only invoiced 3, the free text invoice will be generated for $5 only. I'm not sure if it's by design or this feature will be improved over the time, but this is how it functions currently. All right, now let's go back to our rule and let's introduce a third line with a third type. Click on Add and select Quantity Threshold Minimum Amount. So basically this rule is a combination of the first two. So let me show you how that is done. So here we define our threshold. Let's say it's going to be $500 in US dollars on a specific charge install. The quantity threshold that we have to meet, let's say, will be 100 eaches, and charge amount is not to be populated. It's a grayed out field. Now save this. So basically this rule is saying if we have not met a quantity threshold of 100, then we will look at our monetary threshold of 500 to see how far away we are from it. In our case, the quantity threshold of 100 eaches will not be met. Hence, the system will then calculate the total amount charged on that install fee, and that will be 100. And then it's going to realize that additional 400 needs to be invoiced in order to meet that monetary threshold of $500. So let's test it. We can calculate charges and take a look at our free text invoices. We should now see a third invoice generated. And right here we see the unit price is 400. And also revenue account for 11400 is also populated there on every free text invoice that this feature generated. One last comment about these charge rules: they cannot overlap. So for example, we cannot create another rule for the same customer that overlaps with an existing rule. Forest 2, for example, and select the same forest customer. Now, if I try to save that record, the system will throw this error saying the new record overlaps with multiple existing records. Now, you can take it and set up a start date of, let's say, December 1st. Save that. Now the system is saying, all right, I can adjust the effective end date on the previous rule to November 30th, so they do not overlap with the new rule that we're about to create that starts on December 1st. So if you click on yes, the system will then allow me to save this new rule right here. But my existing rule now will have an expiration date updated from never to November 30th. So I think this is quite handy and quite convenient. So in short, I think it's an interesting development. It's an interesting feature. I think that can be quite useful in scenarios where certain minimum amounts were negotiated based on the specific quantities or based on specific dollar amounts. And if they're not met, then the customer needs to meet the difference. So it can be useful for some service level agreements that have certain minimums defined. I hope you find that video useful. Until the next time, take care.